Good morning. We are going through Virginia Woolf's Shakespeare's Sister. It is the third chapter in her very famous essay, A Room of One's Own. Virginia Woolf starts to examine the presence of women in history. She doesn't get any details of women. Then she starts to collect the details of women characters in fiction. Then she understands all the women characters are very powerful. They are dominating in the lives of kings and conquerors. That's why she starts to think there is a difference between the women in fiction and also women in history. So she suggests the students in Newham and Girton College to make the history of women among the dominating men. For that she gives a questionnaire. We also identify a bishop says we can't see a woman with the talent like Shakespeare in past, present and future. That's why she makes an imaginative character Judith Shakespeare. We already understood what happened to Judith Shakespeare. Then she starts to collect the details of women writers. She also speaks about very famous writers like Jane Austen, Joanna Bailey. When we go through heart-touching stories of women, she feels the author of these stories are women. Then she starts to examine all these stories. Then she identifies women start to write by using pseudonyms. I think if you remembered well, very famous writers who used pseudonyms in their writing. Charlotte Bronte, Mary Ann Evans, Amandine Lucy Dupin. They used the pseudonyms to write. She starts to examine the lives of men and women. When she identifies women are facing so many problems in the patriarchal society. She is discouraged by the society to write, read and speak. The modern reader may find Woolf's theories classist. Indeed, the statement for genius like Shakespeare's is not born among laboring, uneducated, servile people would be met with furor if published nowadays. However, it is important to remember that Woolf believes that money and personal independence foster freedom of thought and that poverty and its attendant ills inhibit such thought. Moreover, she admits that brilliance does emerge from the working class. We also understood, she says, we can't see any genius in laboring, uneducated and also the servile people, the slaves. But we can see the genius among the working class. Well, if you please take the page number 10 in your textbook, last paragraph. The narrator questions what state of mind is most amenable to creativity. She finds that creating a work of art is extraordinarily difficult. Privacy and money are scarce and the world is generally indifferent. By the 19th century, self-conscious had developed so far that it was the habit for men of letters to describe their minds in confession and autobiographies. Their lives also were written and their letters were printed after their death. So we can see that a change happened in 19th century. In 19th century, self-conscious had developed among men writers. They started to write letters, describe their minds. We can call these writings as conventional writing. Then they also started to write autobiographies. But their letters and autobiographies were published after their death. At the same time, we don't know what Shakespeare went through when he wrote Lear. We don't know what Thomas Carlyle went through when he wrote French Revolution. But at the same time, when we go through Shakespeare's very famous play King Lear, we don't know what is Shakespeare thinking about women in his own life. We don't have any idea about it. Like that, when we go through Thomas Carlyle's work, French Revolution, we don't know what was the real condition of women in that period. Who is Thomas Carlyle? He is a Scottish essayist, philosopher and historian. We don't know what Gustave Flaubert went through when he wrote his first novel, Madame Bovary. What Keats was going through when he tried poetry against the coming of death and the indifference of the world. The same feeling we have when we go through the French writer Gustave Flaubert, his novel Madame Bovary. Like that, we don't know what was the mental state of Keats. What did the Keats think when he wrote the poetry against the coming of death and indifference of the world? We don't have any idea about these writers' mind when they wrote these very famous works. As time has gone on, we have become more informed from writers' personal memoirs and diaries, and we learn from this modern conventional trend that production of a work of genius was a huge, difficult undertaking. Actually, when we go through the such a conventional works or memoirs or letters or diaries, then only we can easily understand the struggle of a writer. Okay, even we already studied Madhavi Kutti's introduction, the poem. I told you we can see so many elements related to her own life, and she also speaks about the life of the people who lived around her. So we will get the picture about the women who lived in that period. So like that, when a person writes an autobiography or diary or letters, then only we can easily understand in which situation they are going through. Okay. So we can move to the next paragraph, page number 11. However, it is important to remember that money and personal independence foster freedom of thought, and that poverty and its attendant ills inhibit such thought. If the writer had any distraction, the work would suffer. So Virginia Woolf reminds us money is very important. Definitely money and personal independence are the major factors in a writer's life. If the writer has the freedom to write, the personal independence and also enough money to live, then only she or he can write very effectively. If the writer is suffering with a lot of interruptions, definitely she or he will not get the flow in writing. If the writer wants to express his mind through writing, it is quite a difficult job. Material circumstances will be against it. Making money to live is becoming a problem. Again she repeats that writing is a very difficult job. When we are free from our tensions, then only we will get the flow in writing. Then only the writers can express their feelings very freely. So money and personal independence are very important in a writer's life. If the material circumstances will be against it, she or he will not write effectively. If the society is not allowing her, if her family is not supporting the writer to write, she or he is facing so many problems in her or his family or in her his society. It will affect the writer's creativity very badly. So she reminds us repeatedly, money and individual independence or personal independence are very important in a writer's life. Then only the writer can write very effectively. Making money to live is becoming a problem. People will be different towards it. People are not bothered about whether the writer gets the apt word or not. When we go through a writer's life, we can see that making money is also very important in a writer's life. If they get money to live well, then only they can write freely. They can concentrate on their own work. People are different towards it. People are not bothered about the writer's situations. They are not bothered about the apt word. The writer gets the apt word or not. About their life, in which situation the writer is living, people are not at all ready to think about it. In this paragraph, Virginia Woolf speaks about the problems faced by a man in writing. Then we are moving to the next paragraph. But for a woman, these difficulties are much more severe, and for women, such distractions were so much more prevalent than for men, and works of genius therefore basically impossible. We already identify the problems of a man writers in the case of writing freely and effectively. Then what about the life of women? What about the case of women in writing? We can understand women's difficulties are much more severe than the man. They are facing so many distractions. Their distractions are widespread. From snippets of the history that lies behind the major works of literature, the narrator argues that men's lives are uniquely suited to writing and writing works of genius in one critical way. Society was structured in such a way that men could work undisturbed. So Virginia Woolf started to examine the piece of history. Then she identifies that men's lives are unique. They are getting more space. They are getting more freedom than women. Actually, their life are very suitable to write successfully. They are not at all disturbed by the society. They have the freedom to think freely. They have the freedom to make money. So comparing women, we can see that they are entirely free from such material circumstances. Even though we know very little about women's lives, we know that they must have been fraught with domestic errands and duties and difficulties that meant they were regularly distracted, making it impossible to muster the sustained concentration required to write works of genius. We can see that when we go through women's lives, they are forced to face so many worries in their life. They should have faced the domestic difficulties and duties. They were regularly distracted by these domestic difficulties. So it is impossible for them to gather and strengthen their concentration, which required to write works of genius. When we make the comparison with the life of man and woman, we can see that women have a lot of responsibilities more than men. She always forced to do all the domestic difficulties. She doesn't get the time to concentrate on her works. She doesn't get the space to strengthen her concentration to write just like a genius. She charges the psychologists of Newham and Girton to find out the effect of discouragement on an artist and how they need to be nourished to be able to write. Certainly, many male authors have opinions on the subject. Through this, we already identify material circumstances are very important in writer's life. Women writers are facing so many issues in their lives more than men. That's why she suggests the psychologists of Newham and Girton colleges to find out the effect of discouragement on an artist and how they need to be nourished to be able to write. She wants to get the details of the discouragement, how it affects in the life of a writer, how we can encourage a writer's life with motivation. She wants to get the clear solution for this problem. We already identified Bishop states that it is not possible a woman can write like Shakespeare in present, past and future. She also agrees that maybe it is not possible, but why we can't see the presence of a woman even in golden era? So she identifies women are facing a lot of problems from her own family and society. That's why she starts to compare and contrast the lives of men and women. Men are supported by the society to write creatively. On the other hand, women are discouraged to write creatively. That's why she suggests the psychologists of Newham and Girton College to collect the details how an artist can be motivated by encouragements. She also asks them to collect the details of how an discouragement affects the creativity of a writer. Virginia Woolf also speaks about how uncommon milk and milk grade A works in two rats. we can see that the rat drinks a common milk, it becomes nervous, timid and small. But the second rat drinks grade milk A. As the result, it becomes glossy, attractive, bold and big. From these lives of two rats, we can easily understand grade milk A is powerful than common milk. Like that, we can feel the differences between men and women in the society. Men are encouraged to write creatively, but at the same time women are discouraged by the society to write creatively. Through these lines, the narrator questions what state of mind is most amenable to creativity. She finds that creating a work of art is extraordinarily difficult. Privacy and money are scarce, and the world is generally indifferent to whether or not someone writes. Actually, through these lines, the narrator questions the attitude of society. Money and personal freedom are very important in creativity. For women in the past, the conditions were even harsher. The privacy of a private room or vacations was a rarity. Moreover, the world was not only indifferent to female writers but actively opposed their creativity. So we can see that when we go through the past of women, their conditions were very severe than men. They didn't have any private room of their own. They were busy in their domestic routines. More than that, the society always opposed women's creativity. They didn't allow women writers to read, speak and write. So she repeats that we can see the differences in the lives of men and women. Men are always encouraged by the society, but women are always discouraged by the society. They can't imagine a woman can write creatively. So I think if you got the idea very clearly relating this page, then we are moving to the next page, page number 12. The narrator believes this male discouragement accords with the masculine desire to retain the status of superiority. Unfortunately, genius is often the most susceptible to the opinion of others. Virginia Woolf proves the male discouragement by speaking about Lord Birkenhead and Dean Inch. Who is Lord Birkenhead? He is a statesman, lawyer, orator and member of the British Parliament under Winston Churchill. But she never quotes the dialogue of Lord Birkenhead. But she reminds us, I am not at all ready to make any controversy relating the words of Lord Birkenhead. From that we can identify he also made a bad remark relating woman. She also mentions about Dean Inch. Dean Inch, William Ralph Inch, English author and Anglican priest, was professor of divinity at Cambridge. He was Dean of St. Paul's Cathedral, London, which gave him the name Dean Inch. She also speaks about the comment of Dean Inch. After that, she also speaks about Oscar Browning. Oscar Browning is English writer, historian, educational reformer and co-founder of Cambridge University Day Training College. Anyway, Virginia Woolf didn't speak about the remarks of Lord Birkenhead. She says about Oscar Browning. Oscar Browning, who used to teach at women's colleges, had the opinion that even the best educated woman was superior to the worst man. Now, with the benefit of knowing more about the minds and lives of these male authorities, we can see them as more human and not be threatened by their opinions. But 50 years ago, these opinions would have ruled. I think all of you understood the opinion of Oscar Browning about an educated woman. He says that an educated woman was inferior to the worst man. So we can see that the men who have such opinions, they ruled the society. We don't forget that. Through the remarks of Oscar Browning, Virginia Woolf reminds us we are able to interpret the opinions of great men not only by what they say but by what they do. It is very important. We should identify what the great man says. At the same time, it is more important what these great men do in their lives. Here the narrator argues that in a society where women's inferiority was taken as given, there is of course the natural result that women come to internalize this belief, and that such self-conception of inferiority will naturally affect women's ability to write great literature, because they won't even be able to conceive of themselves as doing so. So Virginia Woolf reminds us this inferiority complex, it will affect the creativity of women. She adds that now that it is clear that much of the male insistence on female inferiority is actually defensive, so that men can continue to feel superior, that such opinions are easier for women to avoid analyzing, but that this is only recently the case. She also gives the suggestion how to overcome this. To make their supremacy, men always speak about the inferiority complex in female. Then only they can always control women power. So Woolf reminds us definitely women have the power to internalizing. She also reminds we don't upset by hearing such a bad comments from the great people. We can also see the positive comments. Mr. Gregg emphatically says are that they are supported by and they minister to men. They have the power to control man. They can become the minister of men. So women should be able to listen these positive commands too. Maybe fathers were not at all ready to read this comment loudly for their daughters, but the daughters should be find out the reality. We can see a lot of such villains in women's life, like Oscar Browning, Lord Birkenhead and Dean Inch. Virginia Woolf also creates such a villain in Judith Shakespeare's life, Nick Grave. But whatever happening, women should be very strong to face such situations. So if you please read the last paragraph. in page number 12. We will continue this chapter in our next class. Thank you.